Welcome to The Catalyst, an exciting and insightful podcast produced by Northeast Iowa Community College. I'm your host, Amy Lasik. Together, we'll explore the people, programs, and partnerships that make Northeast Iowa Community College unique. From student success stories to behind-the-scenes info about athletics, innovation, and industry collaboration, each episode dives deeper into your community's college. Get ready for an inside look at the impact of community-driven education at NICC. All right, well, welcome to The Catalyst. Today's conversation is a great example of how rural communities are doing some really creative and impactful things. I'm joined by Jason Passmore, Executive Director of Howard County Business and Tourism, to talk about economic development in Howard County, the partnership with NICC, and some unique fun programs happening at our Cresco Center. And maybe we might even mention that his office is in the same building as the Iowa Wrestling Hall of Fame, which is kind of cool. So welcome, Jason.
Yes. Hi, Amy. Thanks for having me. And yes, it is cool. Sometimes, just like this past Monday when we have the Wrestling Hall of Fame banquet, it is a fun time to be in my office.
Oh, I bet. So, Jason, before we really jump into some of the meat of our conversation, can you tell our listeners a little bit about you and your role as Executive Director of Howard County Business and Tourism?
Yeah, you bet. So, I get the fun part of working for Howard County up here. We do economic development for the entire county. We do tourism for the entire county. We do our Cresco Chamber of Commerce. We do our Industrial Development Corporation. And all of that was set up by my parent company called CETA, Community and Economic Development Associates. That is a 4-state-based economic development nonprofit organization that just helps out rural America. We go into rural communities, could be a specific city, could be a county like we do, and help out wherever is needed, mostly in economic development. We do a ton of grant writing, which kind of comes underneath economic development. So that's kind of the fun part of what we get to do. And I've been up here now, I can't believe it, about 16 years.
Wow. And I'm sure you've seen some changes over the years and some really cool employers that are in the Howard County area. Can you talk a little bit about what industry looks like in rural Iowa?
Yeah, you bet. That's the fun part of economic development is you get to know a lot of these companies and you get to see what they do. And we have some real cool companies up here. Featherlight Trailers is up here. Featherlight really made a name for themselves making horse trailers and then got into NASCAR. And pretty much every NASCAR driver out there has a Featherlight trailer. And to see what they can do in their facilities is unbelievable. Donaldson's Corporation is up here. They make all kinds of filters that go all over the world. And we've got a newer beef processing facility up here called Upper Iowa Beef that is a state-of-the-art track your meat where it came from in a large operation. And that's just touching it real quick. But we do have a real heavy advanced manufacturing sector up here, which means that we need workforce.
And that's a great segue because that goes right into a big part of your job and probably what you hear about a lot from the constituents you work with. So talk a little bit about your role and what does that mean as far as workforce? How do you intersect with that piece of your job?
Yeah, Amy, that's what's probably changed the most for rural America economic development in the last couple decades. And my gray hair proves I've been around for at least 3 decades of that. But it's not just working with businesses and trying to help them grow and expand and locate. It's also with a workforce that sometimes is difficult to find. And why? 3 factors. We need workforce in rural America. Then we need housing. And then, by George, if they come with a young child, we need childcare. And those 2 other pieces of housing and childcare have really fallen into the world of economic development for rural America. So we deal a lot with that. We want folks to move here. but you don't have to move right to us, but you still got to move close enough to make it economically feasible. We still go, a mile a minute when you drive around here, so that works. However, we just need that housing somewhere to
Mhm.
be half an hour. And that's difficult. That's difficult in rural Iowa. That's difficult in rural America. And then, like I said, the childcare piece comes in. So if they're coming and we want young employees that want to grow a family here and be a part of the community, which is the fun part of our job, we got to have childcare. And the waiting lists are usually long. And that's also very difficult. Not all of us are lucky enough to have grandparents at the ready to take children. We
Mhm.
do need childcare. We do need daycares so that our companies can stay and flourish. And that's probably our biggest focus right now is trying to get our industries and manufacturers up to full capacity. It would be fun to see them at full capacity and see what that looks like.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. I hear that all the time for talking to people across our district is really is a three-legged stool, right? It's not only the bodies to work within these companies, but they have families and they need somewhere to live, and that's got to be pretty challenging for you here in the last couple years.
It is challenging. It is challenging, but that gets into why we, especially here in Northeast Iowa and in rural America, why we work together so well. Like I said, we don't need them all to just think that there's only one town or one county, and we want to try to get them. We want them in the region. We want them up here because we know that people will move around. We want to find them a good landing spot, and they're gonna chase around. They're gonna get further education through you guys at NICC, and grow in their their tools that they can offer to companies that are out there. And so I think we do a pretty good job of trying to work together, realizing that we're all a mile a minute away. So if another community is 20 minutes down the road, that's okay. If they live there or work there, vice versa, we're going to get to touch those individuals and help us all because truly high tides raise all boats, right? That's economics 101. High tides raise all boats, and that goes for industries, that goes for housing, that goes for schools, you name it. The more the merrier.
Yeah, so you touched on partnerships, and I know that your organization works very closely with other economic developer organizations that surround your area. Can you talk a little bit about that partnership?
Yeah, and NICC is a huge partner in that, along with our local council of governments that helps us out, Upper Explorerland. But yeah, we do not try to play secrets and do anything like that. Everything's open because, like I mentioned, we need people, and our partners in other counties need people. We want their companies to grow so that people move here. They want our companies to grow so that people move there. It can be all over the board, but those partnerships are huge. And the other thing it does is it offers us opportunities as a whole to do things that are maybe a little bit out of the breadth of what we could do individually if we work
Mhm.
together. So if we can work together and put on some trainings or summits or whatever as a region, that's really what it comes down to, and that's the help of the partnerships that we've established up here.
Yeah, that synergy can just make such a big impact. And I know we at NICC are very proud of the partnerships that we create. And I know our NICC Cresco Center has been a big part of that for the work that you do. Can you talk a little bit about what that looks like?
That is a huge piece, and thank you to NICC to have that facility here. What a absolute blessing that has been. It has been a godsend for moms and dads that want kids to get a jump start on their college courses. I know personally for myself, my son was able to go through it and graduate with his AA from NICC before he started his 4-year journey. But that 4-year journey didn't end up being a 4-year journey. That ended up being a 3-year journey because he got such a jump start. So that facility and what is offered there is huge. It's a great recruiting tool for us, but it's a good recruiting tool for all of us up here in the region. But the facility itself lends itself to all sorts of stuff. We just had a job fair there this past week, so we can bring in and host people in NICC Cresco Center's facility, bring in our businesses. We can do a lot of fun programs and camps in there that are kind of neat, and that has been a huge asset to the Cresco and Howard County community.
So speaking of camps, one of the fun things that you do with partnership with NICC is the Be Your Own Boss camp. I know I've had a chance to stop by on their like graduation day. It is really a fantastic event. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, that we are on, if you can believe this or not, we are on year 11 of doing that camp. Um, and honestly, it is. It's be your own boss. It is a truly entrepreneur focused camp. And what we tell the kids is they show up on Monday, first day of camp, with an idea. That's all we ask of them, is for an idea, a business idea. And by Friday, as you mentioned, graduation day, they have a business plan created. They have financials, and maybe not full fledged like we would normally do financials, but financials created. They have done a commercial, like a TV commercial they could have. They have business cards. They have a poster board telling their story of what their business is going to be. And then we make them get up in front of everybody and give a little elevator speech on their company. So, it just incorporates everything. And this is for, ready for this, hope everybody's sitting down. This is for kids that are in 5th and 6th grade. We're not talking high school kids here. These are 5th and 6th graders. And that was done on purpose. We wanted to reach out and find the youth that had really cool ideas and weren't um, bothered or worried about the stereotypes that come with it as we grow older.
Hmm.
So, so hopefully everyone could just think of what they wanted to do. What do you want to do? What business would you like to do if you could do your own business all by yourself? And don't worry about whether that should be a man's world or a woman's world. Just what do you want to do? And these kids jump in. They have a great time. So it's an all-day camp. It runs from like 8:30 to 4 every day. The first day they show up at 8:15. And I'll tell you, Amy, you know it's good when they show up before 8 o'clock the rest of the week because they're so excited to get
Get up
there.
early during the summer.
Uh,
That's great. I know that the year that I attended, one of the inventions really stuck out to me because I'm like, that is brilliant. But it was a gal that created a bubble gum company where you could customize your bubble gum, the flavor and the shape. And I'm like, that's so smart and such a great idea for a kid to come up. Over the years that you've done this, are there any inventions that stick out to you?
well, those are cool. What we tell some of the kids, and we go out and we visit kids all in Northeast Iowa. Well, within, I shouldn't say all in Northeast Iowa, but let's just say a good 45-mile-an-hour radius. So we don't just do this for the kids here locally. We get kids from last year, we had 5 different school districts that came to the camp.
Wow.
Because we've seen this isn't offered around us. This is something that you would go to the University of Iowa or Iowa State University and take a camp like this at. And that's actually the University of Iowa is where we got the curriculum, so we knew that. But what we tell them is sometimes they're going to create a business where it could be a real business, and they could turn around and go ahead and make money. And that's one of
Mhm.
the kids on one of the early camps that did a woodworking business. He had already started to dabble that with dad. He made the whole business plan, and then they went out and did it and went to farmers markets and vendor shows and all that kind of stuff, and really turned around and made money at the business plan that he created after camp.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
I love that. I think the other cool part of the camp is the little competition they have during the week when they're selling freeze pops. Can you talk about that too?
Yeah, and we try to give them everything we can. It's a jam-packed week. We tell them you're going to work really hard because it takes a lot to get to the finish line on Friday with a full business plan. But in the meantime, we're going to play really hard. And one of the things we do to play hard is we also talk to them about giving back. And what's it mean if you're a business owner? Can you give back? And so they get to choose their own nonprofit entity to give back to. And we go out into the community and they pick a time, and their time is up to them and their location. So location, location, location. They get to find where they want to sell these Freezy Pops, and then all of the proceeds, and we make them, deduct the expenses that were involved. All the proceeds they get to donate to a charity of their choice. And that's kind of fun. And they have a nice competition. And in fact, I even hear from older kids who want to know, did somebody break my record for the most Freezy Pops sold?
Love that. So many great lessons for these kids. So from your perspective, when you're thinking about business in Howard County, why is it so important to introduce these younger kids to this type of camp and these types of lessons when they're in fifth and sixth grade?
Yes, and that's really what we're doing. We're planting seeds, right? We're planting seeds. What we really want to drive home is you can do it here, you can do it anywhere. Your dreams, they're going to grow up in a world that, for me at least, Amy, wasn't the world I grew up in. That wasn't the case, right? They're going to grow up in a world where they can literally do anything, anywhere. And that is really cool. So why not do it here? If you love it here, if you love Northeast Iowa, you love the outdoors, you love the four seasons, amen. You don't have to go to the big metro areas to make some of these dreams a reality. And that's really what we're trying to do, is just plant some seeds. Will they end up doing that gum creation? Maybe, maybe not. But they may think of something else. And the other thing that we were looking at is this is an entrepreneur educational camp for a week. This is a week out of the summer that these kids are choosing to do this. So it's challenging, and it's maybe challenging to some of these kids that need to be challenged, that maybe are a little bored in school, and already know the answer before the teacher asks the question. And that was kind of our goal too, was to challenge these kids and get them really thinking and find their passion, right? Find what they want to do. And I tell them all the time, hey, this old guy with gray hair, he's out of ideas. I want your cool ideas. I want your fun ideas. What do you guys want to come up with? And like you saw, they come up with some fun stuff.
Yeah, they're a joy to see at the end of that week. So Jason, what are your big dreams for Howard County here in the next, let's say, 5 years?
Yeah, I've identified housing as one of the biggest issues, and we actually created a unique tool for us to help with that a little bit. We utilize in economic development what they call revolving loan funds to help businesses grow and expand and transition. Well, we went ahead and took that concept with the help of our supervisors and our COG to put together a loan fund that was for housing alone, for speculative housing. Could be rentals, it could be spec homes. So we need to keep making inroads to housing. We need to create more availability across the board. I will have developers ask us, well, what type of housing are you looking for, Jason? And I'll say yes. And they go, no, like, do you need senior housing? I go, yeah. Okay, but do you need more rentals? Yeah. Do you need more single family? Yeah. So the answer is yes, whatever you're going to come at me with, because we need to have that for our workforce. We need to expand our childcare slots. Maybe not brick and mortar expansions, just more workforce.
Mm-hmm.
Because with more workforce means I can take care of more kids. And some of our facilities are certified to have double the amount of kids they take care of today if we only had the workforce for it. So, like I mentioned earlier, in 5 years, I'd love to see us continue to make inroads on that, to see what maximizing our potential at our current companies are. It's hard enough to recruit a company, brand new one, when you have available workforce. But when the workforce is tough, those are tough decisions to say, well, let me introduce a brand new 50 employee company to a market that's already screaming for more workforce the way it is.
Yeah,
So that's a tough
absolutely.
ask. And so we need to try to turn that around. And then, part of the other thing that I'd love to see, Amy, is our rural downtowns continue to reinvent themselves, and we're not going to go back to the day and age of the 1940s and 50s, but to continue to be vibrant and active. And again, what we've tried to do is some of that is upper story housing. Put
Hmm.
more housing on those upper stories downtown, makes a live downtown, makes a safer downtown, and creates more opportunities. Whether it be some retail, which is tough, I get it, or maybe it is restaurants and food service. That's tough too, I get it. But some more opportunities for our downtowns to really make it a place that people want to come.
Great. Well, Jason, we always wrap up our podcast with a little fact or fiction segment. So I'll read off a couple statements. You let us know if it's fact or fiction, okay?
Uh-oh. So I'm gonna get
Yeah.
graded on this.
What about young people have to leave rural communities to find good opportunities? Is that fact or fiction?
Well, our camp is based on that one being fiction all the way. We want them
Yes,
to
completely.
have those dreams here and do it here. You bet.
Great. What about rural economic development is only about bringing in large new factories?
That's also fiction. Yeah, and that's where we've really had to pivot from an economic development world and a profession
Hmm.
to understand that we need to be more than just that. We need to be about workforce and housing and childcare. We need to be about helping communities and writing grants to create a place where people want to live and have fun.
Yeah, absolutely. That leads us into the next one. How about tourism plays a significant role in economic development?
That is very much a fact. Yes, your potential new residents sometimes are those tourists that come through and had some fun and think, man, this might not be too bad. Let's visit again, and they visit again and go, huh? Well, I could do what I do wherever up there. So you bet that tourism is a huge factor, and honestly, in Iowa, a bigger factor than most people give it credit for, because
Yeah,
we're humble, right? We just take it for granted sometimes, but folks that aren't from here love it.
good point. Okay, last one. You could give a decent tour of the Iowa Wrestling Hall of Fame if somebody asks you. Is that fact or
Could I?
fiction?
I would give them the best tour, but I do have a better tour guide in the office. Her name is Spiff. So they can either get a great tour from me or a super great one from her. But we do have a lot of fun with visitors that come in here. We just had our Wrestling Hall of Fame banquet. 3 gold medalists were standing in our Hall of Fame. That's pretty darn cool.
Pretty cool. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Well, Jason, I want to thank you for joining us here at the Catalyst to talk about all things Howard County. It's been fun to hear everything that's happening and the direction you're going. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Amy.
So I hope you have appreciated how much is happening in our rural communities as you've been listening to our conversation with Jason. Sometimes it's really easy to overlook, but there's really a lot of intentional work going on behind the scenes. And if you're listening and you haven't been to Howard County or Cresco in a while, it might be time for a visit. And you can stop in and say hi to Jason and maybe take a little tour of the Wrestling Hall of Fame. So that's it for this episode of The Catalyst. We will see you next time. Thanks for joining us on this episode of The Catalyst. If you enjoyed the conversation, make sure to follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. Want to learn more about NICC and the many ways we support our students, partners, and community? Visit nicc.edu for more resources and upcoming opportunities. This podcast is produced by Northeast Iowa Community College and hosted by me, Amy Lasik, with executive producer Tessa Hill, producer Travis Hunt, and graphic designer Ashley Konzen.